tonight. I mean, I don't understand why the American left falls in love with the worst people. You've got a gang-banging, human trafficking, wife-beating illegal alien, and a United States senator in a ludicrous display of energy is in El Salvador having Mai Tais and Yahtzee. I do not get it. I do not understand why the left takes on the heroes. People like that. I don't get it.
The other judge here, the federal judge in Maryland, Judge Zinnes, has been criticizing the government this week for what she says is doing, quote, nothing to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States. Are you personally aware of any steps that have been taken to facilitate his return to the United States?
Look, I think he's a citizen of El Salvador. He's in El Salvador. He's home. He's an illegal alien with a final order of removal. He's a MS-13 member, which is now classified as a terrorist. So we removed an illegal alien, MS-13 member, who has a final order of removal issued by an immigration judge to his homeland.
So should I read that as to say nothing has been done to bring him back to the United States? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know why the left picks these people to die on the hill for their political agenda. Because they found a loophole, is what it is, and they're wanting to exploit something to leverage a constitutional rule or law. And we're going to find that in here in just a second. And this is what they're trying to do, because they're trying to steal the election back in November by flooding the country with all these illegal immigrants. We had hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants into our country to try to flip states. We did a video on that. But now, they're trying to keep them in our state or try to pull them back into our state. And I don't know. And the reason why that is because if they could do that, obviously the long-term goal is to flip these states long-term and not just keep this man in. And they don't care about this guy. Seriously, they don't care about this one guy. And here's the proof. Listen to this.
And I think that's the real reason why they don't want to return this guy. I think they don't care about the political headache of one man. The problem is, if they concede the point that they can ask for him to be sent back and they send him back, that means they can ask for all of them to be sent back,
right,
which is the thing they never want to concede in court. And so they're stonewalling on this one guy so that they can proceed with this much larger project.
Trying to stonewall one guy. These Dems they're always going to show their true agenda of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and that's it right there. Because if they can if they can get the one win to get Garcia back into our country, guess what? They're going to open up the gate. Well, what about all these other ones you deported? They should all have due process as well. These hundreds of thousands of people that you deported, they should all come back and have a due process. They should all have a day in court and hear their immigration case. They could be fleeing for their lives. I mean, they could be these mom and pop people that are no. But that's exactly what they're trying to do.
They created this. They had an open border policy that allowed all these illegals and criminals and terrorists to come into our country and kill Americans. I mean, that's not even getting into the fentanyl and all the other things that are coming across the border that is endangering and killing Americans in a direct sense through the cartels. But these are people that came into our country that could have been prevented from coming into our country because they had a political objective to get as many people in as possible and then allow them to vote in some of these states. It's disgusting. I am so proud and happy that we have a president now in office that is standing for a secure border and for national security to get these people out of our country.
And you know why they want to do that? It's because they tried to steal the election in November by flooding the gates, opening up the borders, and flooding our country and flooding these states with all these illegal immigrants, try to get them temporary protective status. Remember that? Try to give them green cards, try to give them IDs so that way they can go vote. In California, they didn't have to have an ID to vote. We have friends and family in California. No one had to show an ID to vote. So, I mean, you just got people in these countries. You got people in these states that are illegally here. They're going to throw an election, and that's all they're trying to do. The long-term goal for them is to get all these illegal immigrants in our country, flip these states, so that way they can control our country back to back to back to back. Every term after every term after every term, they've got the states flipped. These people are delusional, but I mean, think about it, that's exactly what they're doing. And let's look at the Constitution. You want to see what they're trying to manipulate here? Let's look at this.
Okay, this is the Constitution. Okay, this is the Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18 of the United States Constitution. And this is aliens in the United States. Okay, so in 1903, the courts in the Japanese immigration case reviewed the legality of deporting an alien who had lawfully entered the United States, clarifying that an alien who has entered the country and has become subject in all respects to its jurisdiction and a part of its population could not be deported without an opportunity to be heard upon the questions involving his right to be and remain in the United States in the decades they follow. Now, this is the problem. This is the issue. And this is what CNN and everybody else on the left is trying to manipulate and try to use this loophole to keep all these illegal immigrants into our country. And while they're trying to overwhelm our court system, our immigration court system, with hundreds of thousands, 500,000, quite honestly, what the number is, 500,000 people, cases. To try and individually hear all these immigration cases to keep them in our country. Now, you know how long that's going to actually take for the U.S. government and the U.S. immigration courts to hear every case of a 500,000 people. I mean, you can start to see what they're trying to do here. They're trying to manipulate this loophole that they found. Okay, so let's read the second paragraph. It says eventually the Supreme Court extended this constitutional protections to all aliens within the United States, including those entered unlawfully, declaring that aliens who have once passed through our gates, even illegally, may be expelled only after proceedings conforming to traditional standards of fairness encompassed in the due process of law. That's why they keep saying, well, they have to have due process. Well, they have to have due process. And that's why they need to bring him back. Because if they have the goal of getting him back into our country, if Garcia comes back into our country and goes through this whole process, then they're going to be able to get all those other hundreds of thousands of people that Trump just deported back into our country to try to go through the whole process of going through a legal process and due process. And you know how long that's going to take? That's going to take probably a decade of court hearings of all these immigrants that were illegally poured into our country to have a case one day, a hearing in front of the judge to say, "Oh, why are you here? I fear my life, and and then I have to be in this country because otherwise, I might die in my own country." It's like this is the loophole, and we need to fix this.
And an Obama-appointed judge stopped President Trump from revoking legal status for over 500,000 migrants allowed into the United States under Joe Biden. This is a U.S. District Court judge in Boston, Massachusetts, saying that there was no case-by-case justification. Given the sheer numbers of people that have come into this country illegally, it would be almost impossible to give each person a case and an opportunity to be heard in court. We were talking to Lee Zeldin about EPA issues, and he was saying these district court judges are ruling as you would expect them to, and essentially that these cases will all move higher and eventually be reversed. Your thoughts?
Well, as a lawyer, it's insane to think that a created executive order for a parole program created by executive order through Joe Biden can't be removed by President Trump through executive order. I mean, this is basic law school stuff, which shows you the politicization of the DOJ and the Justice Department and the justice system of these this is an Obama-appointed judge who ruled this way. Anybody with any legal knowledge would tell you if something was created by executive order, it can be removed by executive order.
Look at this paragraph. This says the court reasoned that aliens physically present in the United States, regardless of their legal status, are recognized as persons guaranteed due process of law by the Fifth and 14th Amendments. Thus, the court determined even even one whose presence in this country is unlawful, involuntary, or transitory is entitled to the constitutional protection. You see, this is what they're doing. Okay, this is what they're trying to do long term to flip states. Okay, they don't care about Abrego Garcia. They don't. That senator from Maryland that flew all the way to El Salvador to talk to this guy to make himself appear that he's some good guy standing. They don't care. They don't care about this guy. Are you serious? Do you really think that? No, they care about their butts in the seats in the future. He's planning on probably running for president in probably 5 to 10 years, and he wants to secure his votes and his status of all these illegal immigrants. That's all this is. It's like what about all the illegal immigrants? Like they talk about due process now about getting all these illegal immigrants back into our country, like, what about the due process of them actually coming into our country? Why couldn't they do it the right way the first time? Why could it take so much time for them to do it that way? Why not just pour them in and let it do it on the back end?
We heard from President Trump today, essentially telling reporters, talk to the lawyers when he was asked about Judge Boasberg's ruling that probable cause exists to hold officials in criminal contempt, potentially for violating his orders. Do you think that any of your colleagues have violated orders here?
No, I'm not concerned about it. I mean, fact find all they want. I think the evidence is clear. I think DOJ's made a strong case, and we'll let it play out in court. I mean, as I sit here today talking to you, I don't think anybody in the administration did anything wrong. I don't think we've actually violated a court order. I can't speak to everybody in the administration. I can just tell you what my stance is, and I think we did the right thing. I think he's where he should be, and the order of withholding that everybody keeps talking about, order of withholding is you set aside because he's a designated terrorist, which order of withholding is meaningless, I believe, according to the attorneys. And look, even if he came back, people think he's going to be released and go back to... No, he's going to be detained, and he's going to be removed as per the order of removal, either to El Salvador or another country. So this person has an order of removal. He's seen 2 different immigration judges, and he's been ordered deported. That's exactly what happened.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that withholding removal order essentially said the one place he can't go is El Salvador, where he's from. He claimed that he was concerned he could be persecuted if he was returned. Why not simply have him return to the U.S., detain him, and then deport him to a third country? Wouldn't that be in accordance with the law?
I think we're in accordance with the law. I mean, I'm not an attorney. I'm not DOJ fighting this case, but my opinion, in the years I spent doing this job, he is now designated a terrorist. The withholding orders is set aside. And we got to remember, the withholding order was issued years ago. Things have changed. El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the region because of the steps President Bukele take. You know, the gangs are no longer operating on the streets of Venezuela, in El Salvador. That's why he built that prison. So I don't think the gang danger that they once thought was there is even there anymore. So the situation has changed.
White House, the Central American leader has quickly become a close ally of President Trump's after taking in hundreds of alleged gang members from the U.S. and putting them in a notorious mega prison. One of the people detained at Seacoast Prison is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father who was mistakenly deported by the Trump administration. The Supreme Court recently ordered the government to, quote, facilitate Abrego Garcia's return, but stopped short of requiring the government to bring him back to the U.S. Here's El Salvador's president indicating he's not planning to send him back either.
How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
I want to ask these questions about the proper vetting of the millions of people the Biden administration pushed across the border, at least in this country illegally. No one's concerned about the vetting then. All of a sudden now everybody wants to be concerned about the vetting of people that even be deported. I mean, it seems like a one-side show, but I stand by the fact that I think things were done right with this case. He's an MS-13 gang member. He has a final order of removal. He is a designated terrorist, and he's back in El Salvador, his homeland. And anything beyond that, we'll let the courts settle on it.
You say everything was done right here. And I heard Stephen Miller in the Oval Office on Monday also arguing that he was lawfully deported. But this administration has admitted in court that he was mistakenly deported, that he should not have been deported.
Look, they say there's administrative error, but if you look at the case, if I look at the case as a non-attorney, just an enforcement officer, I think things were done right. Again, they're talking about, well, it might have been a paper error about the withholding, but if we look at the case, then he's designated terrorist. I think that withholding has been set aside. That is my opinion. But again, we'll let DOJ fight it out.
You know, I've seen some people look at this and say they're worried that the stance of this administration when it comes to this is that if someone is deported by accident, that they have no responsibility for them once they are in the custody of a foreign government.
You see how manipulative that question is formed and phrased? It's to say that if you're a U.S. citizen and you get deported, that you would have to be fearing for your life that the U.S. wouldn't pull you back out of the country. But that's not what this is about. This was a legal immigrant. But I love the way how Tom Homan answered this question, because every time these CNN hosts layers these questions and formulates these questions in such a manipulative way. It's like they try to trap you with what they're asking you. But listen to the way how Tom Homan answered this question.
What would you say to that?
Well, they're in the custody of El Salvador. He's an El Salvadoran national. He was born in El Salvador. El Salvador has him in custody, and El Salvador decide what happened to him. I mean, again, the El Salvadoran president made it clear he's not going to release him.
Straight up mic drop. It's like, yeah, if you're from El Salvador, you're going to get sent back home to your country and let your own country and government deal with who you are. And that's to be the end of it. And so, like I said, they're trying to find these loopholes to keep all these legal immigrants in here, because the long haul, what they're trying to do is they're trying to manipulate the system. Now listen to this clown next, talking about how he doesn't understand how they want to use the correct process and due process of keeping these illegal immigrants in here. These guys are talking out of the side of their mouth. I mean, they're saying one thing, hey, let's do the due process of keeping these illegal immigrants in here, but also they neglect the fact that they don't want the due process of actually bringing them in here in the first place, of getting their citizenship the correct way. Listen to this.
I don't understand about any of this is that, well, first of all, why they didn't just do the proper process. Immigration judges are Article 2 judges. They work for the President of the United States. There's a process at the Justice Department where they could have actually had the order rescinded. They just didn't want to do it because it wasn't manly enough or something. But
anyway, so let me know what you think. I know that this is a lot, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. Put it in the comments below. Am I off the rails, or am I on to something when it comes to this whole topic about these illegal immigrants trying to come back into our country? Should they stay or should they go? And is Trump doing the right thing? Is Tom Homan holding it down? Is Pam Bondi doing her job? I mean, you tell us, is this President Trump, is he keeping his promise by making America first and doing the job that he promised the Americans, who the majority of Americans voted for this president? So you tell me in the comments below, is he doing the right job? Is he doing the right thing? And I'll hear from you guys next time. Bye for now.